Welcome to the Hunt Different podcast. I am your host, Jesse Coots.
And I'm Kevin Keenan.
Today, Kevin and I are excited to sit down with my buddy, Kaleb Baird. If you are interested at all in hunting out of state or learning how to get started hunting out of state or just actually want to figure out how to be a killer in your home state, take 45 minutes and listen to this kid. Kaleb, there's a reason I feel like I'm stacking the deck with this kid, and I want to start out strong. I want to come out of the gate kicking and screaming. And I picked this kid because he is the embodiment of what we all kind of strive to be. This is an average guy like you or me, makes average money, comes from an average family, and this fucking kid goes above and beyond and crushes shit that people dream of. Kaleb, it's hard to know where. I want to do a great intro on this kid. It's hard to know without sounding gay how to really push how good this kid is. He's inspiring. He hunts. You give a listen to this podcast and sit down with a pen and paper, it's going to make you better. This kid hunts all over the country on a freaking budget, sleeping in the back of his truck, eating ramen noodles off a freaking tailgate. He's awesome, and I'm honored to call him my friend, and I'm honored that he's going to let us pick his brain. Give a listen, and if you really have the interest in going after it and saying, fuck it, I'm going to try it, this kid's killing phenomenal animals, and we already did the podcast with him and interviewed him. He's killing his average animal with $1,000, and it's taken him 7 to 10 days to kill a great animal. Take 7 to 10 days off of work this year, set aside $1,000, listen to this podcast, and fucking go for it. This kid's going to give you some great tips, and we're excited to share it with you. You ready to get it on, Kevin?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Kaleb, how long ago did you get started hunting out of state, and how did you get started hunting out of state?
So, I went to school in Manhattan, Kansas State University, and while there, being a Kansas kid, I grew up in whitetail country, but you kind of always have an idea what's out west, and we've got big muleys and a handful of pronghorn. And so I think it was my first year at K-State. I got connected with a couple ranchers in western Kansas and went out there to start hunting pronghorn. And that sort of, at the time, felt like an out-of-state hunt just because it's so different from what I grew up doing. And anyway, that spawned a pretty ridiculous pronghorn addiction there for a while. And so my first one was, I had a buddy that was working on a ranch in south central Colorado, and went out there to visit him one summer. And the kind of goats that I'm used to seeing in Kansas, where you might find a herd buck that's 70, 72 inches or something, these things in southern Colorado were out of this world. So
right.
I got to come back out here and try this. And we talked to the ranch manager. They guided some elk hunts and deer hunts and stuff, but they didn't really mess with pronghorn. So we had the place to ourselves the next year, went out for a week and chased some absolute giants. Couldn't make it happen, but some serious goats. And so that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then from there, it kind of, after I got out of school, it kind of morphed into the traveling and doing the deer tour stuff. But the first one was big Colorado goats. So.
And that was in your early 20s?
Yeah, I would have been probably 22, something like that.
Yeah, that's the time to start. If you're out there and you're 22 years old, pack your shit, because you actually don't have I don't care what 22-year-old has what job. It doesn't really matter at 22. If you have 100 to go hunting, go hunting.
Yeah, and Colorado's a little spinny tag-wise, for a young guy getting started. I think that was, I want to say it was over $300 for a pronghorn tag, so that was a little bit to swallow, but still, we could stay at a ranch house, and we weren't paying anything for trespass fees, and so it was just gas and grub and beer money and that type of thing.
Yeah. So. What do you think your average hunt costs you when you go out of state? I mean, obviously elk is going to be different, mule deer is going to be different, but if you throw away the price of the tag, everybody knows what the tags cost. What are you blowing? Because I think a lot of people think that these hunts are a hunt of a lifetime and they're stupid expensive. So I'm curious what you blow on a hunt. And I actually hope that it's extremely cheap, because I tell my wife it's not much at all.
No. I mean, really, it's not in the grand scheme of things. Like you mentioned, a big majority of some of them, especially elk tags or whatever, are going to be your tag costs, and then after that, it's fuel for me.
Yeah.
Usually, and then I'll load up a cooler at Walmart with a bunch of crap, and go sleep in the back seat for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever. And so it kind of depends, really, for me. It depends how much time you're spending in the pickup. And I've been on some hunts where you're kind of trying to figure it out as you hunt. And so you're flying all over the state, checking out different pieces of ground and burning up some gas. But I'd say my average deer cost comes in well under $1,000 for an out-of-state hunt.
So take that into account, guys that are listening. This kid's killing, and you're killing. I mean, not that we have to get into where, but I mean, a lot of your tags are not OTC, but they're 100% draw. Or tell me what your tags. I mean, say we're just talking whitetails. I mean, your average guy's going to get started on a whitetail hunt.
Yeah, no, I mainly have focused on the plain states the last 4 or 5 years. So obviously, I hunt Kansas every year, and then got in kind of some good country in Colorado, and that's usually a 0 or 1 point Eastern Plains tag. Right. So that is a draw tag. But then hunted Nebraska a lot. That's over the counter, $240, I think, and you get 2 of them.
Yeah, wow.
South Dakota. I put in for North Dakota this year. Didn't I drew it, but never wound up between the fishing schedule and some other stuff. I didn't make it down there, but yeah, kind of focused on the plain states and in that country.
Right. So I've known Kaleb for about 10 years, and this is the first time he's ever missed a state, as far as I'm concerned. And he says for some other things, and that other thing is I think a girlfriend is the other thing.
Roger. Yeah,
I missed North Dakota because some other things.
Well,
that was a classy way of putting it.
Yeah. there might have been some
good cover. That's fine. Yeah,
little influence on the Jackson job.
I would say so. Yeah. So that's impressive. I mean, your hunts are literally, I would say $300 or $400 cheaper than mine. I would say my average hunt cost me $1,300 to $1,400, $1,500, but that's because I'm blowing an extra $300 or $400 on fuel driving from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah, I was going to say you're coming a lot far than where I'm generally located, half day or a day from where I'm headed. So.
Yeah. So you're kind of the same as me in the fact that you're not, I do apply and try and get some good preference points and some good tags, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I pretty much do as well on over the counter or pretty much every year draw states. In you pretty much are hunting the same thing. You're hunting OTC or 1 point draw states.
Yeah, I mean, some of the states you've got to play the game, but there's still, like you said, those Colorado tags, and North Dakota, where they don't have a point system. So it's just a lottery draw. There's some of them you got to play the game, but nothing's really that hard to acquire for sure.
Yeah.
Most of what I'm doing.
And that's what you're looking for. Yeah, you're looking to go. How much time do you set aside? I mean, obviously it depends. It's fucking cat.
For a hunt, yeah.
Yeah, how much time do you... I just had a cat jump up my lap. I've enjoyed watching the cat. I climbed up on Kevin's lap, but he's so used to the feline on his lap that it really didn't bother him. I can't stand these fucking cats. How much time do you set aside for your hunts? I mean, obviously, whitetail and elk are two different beasts, but...
Yeah, some years it kind of depends on the schedule. I mean, we've talked about mine's pretty open-ended, so I'm kind of lucky in that department. But I've usually kind of got an idea of where I want to be when. But ideally, I mean, really, I'm going to want at least a week, especially with the new spot.
A week to hunt.
More like 10 days. Yeah. So like 10 days would be ideal.
Right.
But like a few years ago, just to highlight how ridiculous my schedule is. I did 19 straight days in Nebraska, found in the sandhills and different country, and finally got it done. So, you know, there's no magic number, but I would say if it's your only hunt and you want to put a serious effort in, yeah, at least 8 to 10 days.
That's right.
Deal.
Yeah, that's a great way. Great way to put it. Yeah, exactly. $1,000, 10 days. How much? How are you hunting? I mean, obviously, I kind of know the answers to some of these, but do you prefer to hunt new states, or are you finding your success just hitting the same state over and over? I mean, obviously, you're hitting Kansas every year because it's your home state.
Yeah. Kansas is an every year one. Even when I'll be situated here in Alaska full time, that'll be one. I've got to at least get back and try to make it back for a couple weeks. But it's kind of a mixture of both. I've hunted Colorado every year for 4 or 5 years now. Nebraska maybe every other year in that stretch, 3 out of 4 years, something like that. The Dakotas once, and I'd like to get back up there, or South Dakota, and had intended to hunt North Dakota this year, which would have been a new state. So,
but that pussy.
There's no, there's some. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff out there that intrigues me that I haven't done. So usually it's kind of a mixture of doing something new and then 1 or 2 of the old standbys.
Right.
My routine.
Yeah. What would you? So, like I said previously, I think one of the exciting things, I love getting people started with stuff and sharing things I've done or if my friends have done and stuff like that. What would you recommend if a guy is a diehard hunter, but has never been out of state? What species would you? I mean, whitetail is probably the easiest, don't you think? And how much time and money? You gonna set $1,000 in 10 days?
Yeah, whitetails. I mean, by far and away, gonna be the most accessible. Tags, public land, pick a state and go for sure.
Most of
you want a little more Western feel. What's that?
Oh, I was just gonna go ahead and finish. I was gonna ask you. Go ahead and finish that.
If you want to, if you are a whitetail guy or something from a little farther east and want a little more Western feel, any of the plain states are gonna have easy to access pronghorn and muley tags. So, one of those 3 anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the easiest. You're like the same as me. A lot of yours come from just walking or public land, correct? I mean, you do have some. We both. I have some private I hunt. You have some private you hunt. But I mean, you've had great success on public.
Certainly, yeah. I've in the last 5 or 6 years since I've gotten really serious, most of it's I kind of focus on public land hunting, but I still hunt somebody's farms in Kansas, and if you get a line on something somewhere else, I'm not totally opposed to hunting private ground, but
now tell me.
I don't know, the big chunks of public intrigue me quite a bit more, really.
Yeah, and tell us why, because I don't think a lot. Well, not that I want more people on the public, but.
For me, it's just kind of a freedom thing. Like, it's just you show up to a 50 or 100,000 acre patch of public ground, and you can go anywhere, and you just take off and have at it. You're not playing the public private boundary game near as much in the small, hunting the small stuff like in Kansas, but. It's just more of a free feeling, I guess. Kind of go where you please type of deal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And it is a little tougher, So when you do figure it out, I suppose the guy feels a little better. But
for sure, yeah. Do you ever hunt with anybody else? Kevin, you talk to him for a minute. I get rid of this fucking cat. Keep talking, Kaleb.
Yeah. No, I do some hunts with some buddies. Colorado, the way we kind of got started out there was a buddy, his in-laws had some farm ground out in eastern Colorado. And so that's how we kind of got to looking into it, realizing tags were fairly easy to acquire, and then there was a little dab of public ground near where their farm was. So we started doing that together. We've done that together 3 or 4 years, I think, and so I do primarily solo though. Just we kind of, like we talked about, my schedule's kind of too open-ended for a lot of the buddies with real jobs and that type of deal, and it's you never know where I'm going to be when, so I like to leave things kind of open-ended, and I don't know, I kind of just prefer to be out there doing it myself and sleeping in the pickup and that type of thing.
Yes.
But it is fun, it's fun to meet up like you guys at Matt's place for sure for a week or something in the fall and mix some of that in too.
Right. Kevin, can you see why we've kind of lived vicariously through Kaleb?
I can totally figure that out. Yeah.
I kind of like to come and go as I please. If I got to spend 19 days in Nebraska, I do.
People with other real jobs.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't like hanging out with people with real jobs because they suck. So I don't set up any hunts with them. He literally gets together with a bunch of us in the middle of Kansas in November and eats corn nuggets and drinks beer for a week, but other than that, he doesn't really talk to people. He's kind of got it figured out.
Corn nuggets and Coors Light.
That's the truth. This one time, all I heard about was these corn nuggets. So, and the crew that we have is, I don't know how you'd phrase this. I guess the alcoholics, maybe you'd and what was it? Jason, Ron, Matt, and you and myself, and I don't know who else was there. Yeah. We went to this little bar, and all I'd heard about is these corn nuggets, and I guess Kaleb was just, aren't they called corn nuggets, Kaleb?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All I heard about was these corn nuggets. And Matt's like, yeah.
Little balls of golden goodness.
And Matt's like, yeah, they're pretty good. You'll have to get some. So, and they made a joke. They're like, if Kaleb hasn't eaten them all, so we go to this bar and we all order a few beers, and it finally comes time to order, and we go down through the line, and it gets to me, so I'm like, yeah, I'll have a cheeseburger or I don't know what, and corn nuggets. And they're like, oh, sorry, the lady's like, Kaleb took the last order. You would think he would have been like, oh, Jesse can have them. Caleb's like, sorry. That's a fucking true story, too.
I'm sure I shared one or two.
You did! I think you gave me 2. Such a class act.
Yeah, well, I think we ate there like 3 or 4 days in a row. So we did. I think we ate them out of house and home. Nuggets.
You did. That was my only trip to the bar on that trip, I think.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched. I got a little itinerary that I also sent to you. I'm reading this. So the awkward silence. That's what this is. I'm reading this. And we covered some of this stuff already, so that's good. Just to inspire people, because I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes before I go on a hunt, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I know how hard I'm going to have to work, and I know I'm going to public land, and this and that, and it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Give me some examples of some of the animals you've seen on over-the-counter tags, because I try and tell people the stuff that I've seen, and I almost feel like a bullshit artist when I tell them about some of the bulls I've seen, some of the mule deer I've seen, and some of the whitetails I've seen, and some of the ones I've killed. Give me a couple examples of some of the caliber animals. You don't have to say where or any of that stuff. You could later you could text me exact GPS coordinates of where you saw these animals. That'd be great. But.
Send you some pics. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a little spoiled in that even though I'm an Alaska resident now, Kansas is still a resident state for me with the lifetime license program. So I know Kansas isn't an over-the-counter state. It's still a 0 or 1 point state. So it's, it's right in there with the rest of them. But, I mean, yeah, some of the bucks, obviously everybody knows Kansas and growing up there, and having access to a lot of friends and families ground. And then also the walk-in program really is kind of where I cut my teeth hunting public ground. And you just, it's the type of state, you never know what you're going to turn up anywhere from state line to state line, either direction. There's good deer all over.
Sure. So we got to stop talking about Kansas, though. I feel like that all the guys in Kansas are going to hate me. But I mean, you killed a hell of a buck in Nebraska on a freaking nothing tag. Was it last year?
So that's what I was going to say. Nebraska is kind of I don't know. It's kind of its own beast. I think if Nebraska was managed like Kansas, it'd probably be the best deer state in the country.
You don't think it's bad?
Down.
You don't think they're screwing themselves? You might think they're screwing themselves with a rifle season that comes in the first week of November?
Yeah, let's shoot $2 in the middle of November, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, they've got the genetics, and they've got everything. They've got the terrain, the variability, from east to west, whitetails, muleys, sandhills, and then the northwest corner, the Pine Ridge. It's a beautiful state, and the reason that's the reason I hunt it is mainly for the type of country rather than the deer. But like I said, it took me 19 days a couple years ago, and then last year I only had 3 days before I was supposed to meet up with an uncle in Wyoming to go elk hunting. So I kind of debated whether even to buy a tag, but wound up doing it, and found a killer buck day 2, and he was only a 3-year-old buck, but he went right over 180. So
that was a beauty.
Buck for a Sandhills muley, no doubt. And I mean, by far and away, I've spent, I don't know, maybe 30 days in that country now total between 3 hunts, and by far and away the biggest deer I've seen up there. So it's, if you're gonna hunt public land in Nebraska, you got to kind of have the right expectations.
Yeah, exactly. How long does it usually take you?
South Dakota.
Go ahead.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say South Dakota is kind of a good mix between Kansas and Nebraska. I'd say it's they've got really big deer, but they also throw a rifle season in the middle of the rut type of deal. And but I'd say as a whole, you're going to find a higher age class in South Dakota than Nebraska for sure. So
right,
in my experience.
Right. And you killed a good bull, in Wyoming? Where'd you kill that bull? Was it not last year?
Yeah,
the year before?
Yeah.
The hell did you have that great year? Was it?
Yeah.
It was last year. You had a hell of a year.
2018. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that one I burnt. So that was kind of supposed to be the big hunt of the year. I burnt 10 points on a Wyoming tag up in the Bighorns, and killed a good 6x. It was my first bull. I'd hunted him in Colorado a little bit, but had always been building points since I was, I don't know, 19 or 20.
Yep.
And finally decided it was time to burn those, and killed a good 6x. He was pushing 300, so I was pretty stoked.
Yeah.
And then it kind of 2018 kind of snowballed from there. I couldn't mess up wherever I went.
Keep going. Tell us the rest. This is it's like foreplay.
So, yeah, I mean,
I'm close.
Yeah, no, I had a full 2 weeks. I could hunt the second half of September on that tag, 15th through the 30th, and so I had the full trip planned there, and then I killed him on day 4. So then I was kind of like, well, what do we do now? And got the bull taken care of, and Kansas antelope opened up that weekend after that, and like I said, there for a while that was kind of my thing, and with the Alaska fishing schedule, I hadn't been able to hunt Kansas for pronghorn for about 5 years. So buzzed back down there. Took me all of 1 hour to kill a good goat on a big piece of public ground out there. And so then I took a few days off and see some friends and family. And then that's when I went on that Nebraska hunt. I was my uncle had drawn a cow tag back up where my bull tag was, and so we were going to go back up there. And I had 3 days to kill, and bought that Nebraska tag, and killed that good buck on day 3. And hopped in with the uncle, went up, killed a cow, and came back in Kansas deer season. I always try to be there by about the first part of November. And actually it was still October. I made it back to Kansas, and went down southwest corner, was hunting with a buddy that farms down there. And he farms the big Milo country, big wide open prairie. And he's got some pretty killer whitetails in that part of the world. and we got on. I think it was the first day down there. Got on a little big 155, 157, 10 out in the Milo field. He was already bedded with a doe. Snuck into 20 yards and thumped him in the Milo field. And then went out to Eastern Colorado. Had the Eastern Plains tag, and that's always ideal because I think because of their early rifle season, Eastern Colorado seems to rut maybe a week or two later than Kansas. And so it's worked out good for us. I can hunt first half of November in Kansas if need be, and then still have a tag out there. And so we usually show up about the 14th or 15th out in Eastern Colorado, and it's just firing up good. And that's the way we hit it that year. Kale, my buddy that I was telling you about, his in-laws have some ground, and we showed up and the rut was going hot and heavy. We both had the either species tag that year. And so we found a good pocket of muleys and just kind of hung out on them, kind of had a rodeo with a buck I was trying to kill. Got in on him 3 or 4 times. Both of us couldn't get him killed. And wound up getting Kale on another good 4x, and it was his first buck, period. So that was pretty cool. And then the next morning, got back on that heavy 4x and got in front of him and killed him. So to wrap up the season, so it was kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah, no, that's it seemed like
I like my 19. I like my 19-day Nebraska hunts that take some work and takes a while for it to come together, but I'm not going to complain, I guess, with a season like that either. So
no, it's sometimes. And
it was pretty wild.
He says he wrapped it up in Colorado. Then he meets a wonderful girl. I mean, that's really kind of the highlight of the season.
It's quite
Holy
a year.
Smokes, that's the best year ever.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tons
yeah,
of good animals and a good woman. How do you go wrong there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with that being
That's
said,
all right.
how many times have we've Kaleb and I and a few other friends are in a group text all the time, and you always, for every great season or every great hunt, there's always a million other, I just blew one out, or poor Caleb's been there for 19 days.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have a season that it comes together, and we've all had that. I don't think I've had a season where I killed 7 or 8 or however many you just described, but I've had them where I went to Ohio, killed literally a big buck first day, go to Kansas, killed a big buck first day, killed in New York, killed in Montana, and it's like, man, I can't do wrong. And then there's other years you punish yourself, and it's like, fuck, I can't even find anything to shoot. So if you're having one of those years, just keep pushing.
Yeah, for sure. You never know when it's going to turn. Yeah, like I said, that Nebraska hunt that took damn near a month. And Colorado one year I hunted one buck for 5 or 6 days by myself and was on him every night. And he'd come out and he'd rut in this little patch of volunteer wheat, and the does would come out there to eat, and there was a big weed line along one edge of the field, and that's basically all I had for cover. So I'd get tucked in that, and it was just a crapshoot whether he'd cruise by close enough. And I missed him once. And another night he was coming right at me. He was going to walk by me at 10 yards, and had some rustling behind me. And he holds up at like 40 yards, sticks his head up in the air, staring right at me. He would have had no idea I was there. I had the wind right, and the sun was behind me, but all this commotion was going on. And it was a goddamn porcupine, like coming out of a little patch of brush behind me, making a racket. And he threw his tail up, turned around, and was gone. I never did kill that buck, but you never know.
Yeah, no, that's anybody who's chased anything has a pile of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
A pile of those.
Definitely.
Another question, how much prep work? I haven't subscribed to any bow hunting magazine. I love them all and would support them, but I just stopped subscribing to everything. I don't really read much anymore. I do nothing on any hunting forum, and I know I should, and I would like to. I just don't have the time, but I remember as a kid, 20 years ago, just reading all these things about working out and conditioning and prep work and shooting. And I did a ton of it, and I think it really paid off. However, I got to admit, I don't do as much now, or if I hate to even say, how much do you do? How much prep work, shooting, conditioning, etc. do you do? Caleb's pretty, with that being said, Caleb's a pretty lean, raw kid anyway. It's not like you're not a slouch, and he's got a worker's job, so he's always in shape, but.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the thing. It really not near as much as I'd like to. If we're talking, you know, in terms of physical and practicing and all that, you know, I'm on a boat 80 to 90% of the summer, so
no shit.
Kind of obviously not much shooting time. We'll get back to town as season gets closer in August and early September. We're in town a little more, so I'll kind of make it a point to, on a day off, we get a day off here and there, definitely get some shooting in. But the job itself is going to keep you in relatively good shape. So,
right.
So that's kind of a plus. I try to get some hiking in, but you know, a lot of times you get a day off, you're kind of beat anyway and need to take a day off and do some rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as it's really not what I would like it to be. But it works, and then I shoot a lot. You know, I got a target in the pickup type of deal. I'm shooting a lot when I'm traveling around, that type of deal. But
right.
I'd say a majority of my prep work is on the phone. Looking at maps. I download all sorts of maps and OnX and all that, and so then when I'm on the boats during the summer, I'm pouring through reg books and looking at harvest stats and stuff I can do offline, in downtime where maybe I can't get out and do a hike or shoot my bow or something, but I'm cruising through, Google Earth and OnX and trying to get a plan laid out and making notes and that type of thing. I think that's probably where I put most of my effort in that pays off for sure.
That's interesting because I do none of that. There's a big weak point of mine. I hate it. I don't have time for that shit. And I just hate it.
No, you don't. I mean, you got 3 girls and a busy job for sure. It works for me because, there's a lot of travel days on the boat and stuff like that where,
right.
You can watch movies or read a book or something, but I might spend 4 or 5 hours looking at OnX or I download some harvest stats and all that type of stuff, and you can still dive in. So
yeah, that's actually a good point for a guy that if you want to if you have a little bit of time and you want to up your odds, that's a point that I wouldn't even bring up in a podcast because it's not something I do. It's actually humbling because I'm sitting here thinking, fuck yeah, like I don't look at any odds. I just literally do a little research, slight bit of research, make a few phone calls, and just fucking dive into a spot. And if I don't like what I'm seeing, I just fucking go to the next one. But I know I could save. When I talk to somebody like you or other people, even when I called you this year about Colorado, it's amazing how well-versed you were just in the stats of things and animals and this and that. Fuck, I don't know. I just go places, work as hard as I can, and if I don't find what I'm looking for, I get the fuck out.
Yeah, that's probably where we differ. I mean, you're going to hop on the phone and call 15 or 20 guys, and I'm more, I don't know, introverted, I guess, and I'd rather pick apart the stats on the Fish and Game websites and do some Google searching and that type of thing and sort it out that way. I'll call some buddies and whatnot, but I'm not used to, I'm not one of the guys that's going to pick up and call strangers and that type of thing. So,
right. Well, with that being said, I've also been, I know I've been led astray on a couple states. Not by. I mean, I really don't call too many people anymore. There's a few of you that I know that would they'd give me a solid, or they'd say, fuck, dude, I only have one spot there, and I just can't send people there. And I'd be like, yeah, no, fuck, I get it, no worries. So, there has been times, so be careful, people, because there's been a couple states I've been to. I won't say the states because I think these guys are at some point might listen to this, but they're great guys and I still like them. But one state in particular I went to, and a guy gave me some pointers on where to go, and I went there and it was like, this is a fucking desolate area. And then I got in, I just started picking apart the rest of the state, got into some animals, got into a lot of animals, and then I actually called him back this was when you would actually go to a payphone and call somebody, and I called him and just told him where I was, and he's like, nah, you don't, I would stay, and I'm like, well, I'm getting into animals here, and he's like, I'll tell you a spot that's great, and told me an area to go to that was fucking 40 miles from where I was, and a year later, I realized that I was literally in his hometown. Like, I was right where he lived. And it's like, fuck, no wonder.
Yeah.
And this dude kills fucking gaggers. But so don't always take Jesse's train of thought and call a buddy and pick their brain. Sometimes you're a lot better off to do what Kaleb's doing and do the stats. The only thing with the stats is I've killed a fair amount of pretty good animals, and I don't put anything in the books, ever. I have one animal. I put one animal in the book one year.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that too. I'm more worried about, if people are killing, especially bow killing deer or whatever, and then kind of, looking at public land opportunities, and I don't know, there's a whole, list of things, I guess, a guy could come up with, but not necessarily if they're killing big deer. I figure if there's a lot of deer and sort of, a season structure, if you give it a good effort, you're going to find a big deer in a lot of areas, I think. So
Right. Wow. And that's something people figure out as they get in. It's addicting. I will admit that the research is addicting, and I love it. I wish I did have more time, because you do feel extremely confident going into a state when I have good reconnaissance. Yeah. Like when we went to Colorado this year, I was literally going there to help a friend, and it was like I did zero homework, and I just thought, I'm just going to beat myself up for 2 weeks. It'll be fine. And the guy I took it was literally like dragging a 200-pound dumbbell through the woods. Great guy. He's probably listening to this, but that beating yourself up for 2 weeks theory didn't pay off in that atmosphere, in that structure. But having done more homework, and as soon as we got there after the first day, I was like, this is on you, Jesse. Like, you fucking idiot. I did no homework. I really should have taken a page out of Kaleb's book. So if you plan on doing a hunt, like, do some paper reconnaissance and some computer reconnaissance like Kaleb's mentioning. And what you had said is pretty self-explanatory. People should be able to figure that out.
Sure. Yeah, anymore. I mean, there for a while, it was, maybe 10, 12 years ago, it was a lot of just message board research. And then the Fish and Game sites, kind of got everything organized, and there's days and days worth of info out there that a guy could pour through anymore. So
what do you think of the info or the intel from the Fish and Games? Do you get pretty good feedback from them, do you?
I mean, it depends on the state, of course. Some states are terrible. Obviously don't give you anything.
Give me a state that's terrible, because I got one.
Kansas.
Okay, yeah.
Which is fine with me.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
is fine with me. But then other states, I mean, are an open book. Yeah, I mean, they lay everything out. Colorado's pretty good. So Nebraska's fairly good. It's all pretty straightforward.
Right.
So yeah, it kind of depends. Depends on the state and what they want to tell you, I guess.
Sure. It's a good place to start, though. No matter what, even if it's a shitty state for information. It seems I've called quite a few states. I've always gotten at least a place to start, and I've been amazed. 2 states in particular that I've been to, run into people on great pieces of public ground. And very rarely do I run into people, but 2 different times I've run into people and I've thought, man, this is such a good pocket that I thought I had to myself. And I've asked them, like, how'd you end up coming here? And they're like, we called the DNR and they told us there was a high population of animals here. And it's like, fuck. Like, I want to call the DNR and be like, hey, I hunted over here and I didn't see anything this year. I don't know what happened. But so they do give good information, because I put in a lot of legwork only to find out that I could have just called the DNR and got this kind of information. But
exactly. And they're probably telling everybody the same thing.
Yeah, right. And I think that area has actually gotten not worse, but there's definitely a lot more. Definitely a lot more pressure there than there was when I first went there.
Sure.
I love equipment. I'm an equipment guru, although I think my equipment is extremely humble compared to a lot of guys. Most of my equipment is actually modified. For some reason, I always feel like I got to modify shit. But give me your top 3 pieces of equipment. If besides you're obviously a great shooting bow, but what are your three favorite pieces of equipment?
So I guess since we already talked about it, I wrote 3 down here. I'd say my iPhone. I'm constantly on it year round. I mean, on X anymore, and then like we were just talking, maps, Google Earth. I don't know. There's probably rarely a day or 2 that goes by that I'm not, at least doing something. And this time of year is application season, so I'm on Go Hunt and state sites and trying to get a game plan together for what this fall is going to look like. And
that's what
anymore there's just so much stuff out there.
That's a hell of an answer. I never ever, if I were to write down my top 100, I would not have written down my phone. I'm 42.
Yeah, I thought. Well, the other 2 are pretty generic. I mean, everybody's gonna probably say I had a tripod and then the best glass you can afford. So those are about what most guys are gonna say and all that. But I mean, even where we hunt in western Kansas and prairie country, a lot of guys wouldn't think to run a tripod and really good glass necessarily, but even out there, you get a little elevation in some of that CRP ground or picking apart some big yucca canyons and stuff like that. It's to have good glass on a tripod is it's going to help you immensely. So
yeah, and I think those
would be the other 2.
Yeah, no, those are your first answer blows my mind. I'm actually sitting here shaking my head thinking, yeah, fucking that's a tool. Yeah. That's a good answer. I'm 42 years old and I didn't grow up with a what are you, 32, Kaleb?
32.
32.
Yep.
And it is amazing the difference in what are you, 28, Kevin?
Are you sure you're 42?
Oh no, fuck, I'm 43. Yeah, so I'm 43. Thanks for that. But my age did not grow up with. I don't use this phone like you guys do. And if you are a 43-year-old plus type guy, take a note from these fucking cats because you guys really use your phone so much more than I do, and I just don't. And that's a really good fucking. I just suck on it. I mean, I'm decent on Pornhub, but I mean, other than that, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
Oh, inappropriate. Kevin just gave me the sign for inappropriate.
No, admittedly, I'm probably on it too much, but it's incredible what how it kind of helps with the learning curve, and there's so many ways to use it. I mean, even social media. I guess I didn't mention that in the research, but there for a while, it was the message boards and stuff, and then Facebook came around, and and this is kind of one of my tips, I guess, that I've probably never really told anybody, but you get a line on a certain area anymore that you want to think about hunting, you can Google some outfitters in that area and look at the rundown of bucks that they're killing, and then you can get on Facebook and start digging up through, some of the different hunting pages or groups you can follow and start digging up local guys and checking out their profiles and that type of thing. And, you can get a pretty good idea what kind of deer are in a certain area, just being, just creeping basically. And, so it's pretty wild what the iPhone and all that internet has done for research. I guess it's a little different than digging through a Pope and Young book anymore and calling the DNR. There's a lot of stuff right here at our fingertips. So
yeah, for sure. That's a killer. That's a killer piece and hence the reason I don't post shit on Facebook. I really don't have.
No, well,
I really.
I've backed off a lot, and I think a lot of mine's private and guarded. But if you really want to dive in and get snoopy, there's some guys that put some stuff out there, and you mix and match some hometowns with some big trophy picks, and start looking at some local public ground, and you never know.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these guys too. With that being said, a lot of these guys that are posting it have great private. They're not worried about it.
That too.
But it's a great area.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But still, yeah. Those kind of deer in the area, you never know what's on public. So.
Yeah. I don't think I have 100 friends on Facebook that are hunters. I'm not kidding. Like everybody on my Facebook, because I never post hunting pictures because I don't want the. No matter where I kill, an animal, people will be like, "Oh, I used to post them. They'll be like, I've seen that buck," and it's like, this deer's not from New York. You definitely did not. Oh, I know that one. That was over on McEwen. No, it wasn't. So I just stopped posting. But I suppose, being that we have 2 followers on this podcast, we probably should post some deer pictures on Facebook. But
there you go.
Yeah, but
there for a while I was adding everybody and accepting everything, and I don't know. It's been 3 or 4 years now. If I don't know you, I haven't accepted you. I guess it kind of got pretty old, and then this last year I kind of deleted it, got off of there just to unwind a little bit. But
yeah, no, that's smart. Smart. Cool, man. Well, Kelvin, you got anything you want to throw at Kaleb?
I think something we discussed earlier. We obviously know he's very successful, but I think we need to share one of those moments where the big miss or something that went wrong. I know you mentioned a miss earlier, but can you just share a quick story with us about something that didn't go as planned?
Yeah, so I guess we kind of talked about that Colorado buck that I spent 5 or 6 days on, and he wasn't a huge deer. He was mature. I mean, he was a herd buck in that area, and so sometimes in some of these hunts, you got one thing in mind if you're talking antler specs or whatever, but it doesn't always work out that way. And so I'm not, if I find a mature buck that's good deer for sure, I'm gonna kind of adjust and be totally happy with a deer like that. He was probably 135 inch 10, but he was old. And anyway, so yeah, 5 or 6 days on him, missed him, and then the porcupine foul up the last night. It's kind of throw the bow and call it a season type of deal. But that's the way it went.
Throw the bow.
Yeah.
Have you ever thrown your bow?
Oh, I guess not in like a total fit, but yeah, maybe a little throw it down frustration type of thing, I guess. So.
Yeah. One time I missed a geiger and I literally didn't throw it. I kind of was so pissed. I started to throw it, and as I threw it, I dove for it at the same time because I did not want anything to happen to my bow, and I thought that was the brattiest thing I've ever done. I will never throw.
Yeah.
That's like the guys that punch walls. That was fucking stupid. Why would you punch a wall?
Yeah.
But,
no, it can be frustrating for sure.
Well, you're way ahead of me. If that's your greatest miss and mess up, man, I could tell fuck up stories all day.
I mean, I've told guys this before. If my trophy wall of misses and screw ups, if you could compare it, I would cry a lot of tears. I mean, and you've seen the kind of bucks that I have killed, of course, but there's a handful that haunt me. I mean, that one's the funniest for sure because
the porcupine.
I spent some serious effort, but there's some Kansas bucks that I've left out there that it's make you stay up at night. Deal, but
yeah, well, if anybody plans on being you really, I love the quote, it's the journey, not the destination. And if you plan on going hunting, I used to literally go hunting and I had to shed blood, like shit had to die. And I'm still pretty, I know shit's getting killed. However, I really just love it. I love the traveling. I love meeting people. I hate public bathrooms at the rest stops, but other than that, I really love everything about the hunt. And if you plan on live in that, you got to be prepared for failure. It's like dating women, You're definitely there's gonna be some highs, and then you're gonna have some chicks be like, you're 5'8", get away from me, and you gotta you gotta be ready for the lows. Yeah.
Yeah, and then with that, some of my coolest bucks or most favorite hunts, whatever, have come after maybe a week or 3 days or 10 days or something after a big fuck up. It's so you keep pushing and you never know what's gonna happen, but you're all bummed out and tore up over something you messed up, and then 4 or 5 days later you kill something crazy, and that that you never would have had a chance at if you'd have carried through on the first opportunity. So you never know.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I always think that when I miss an opportunity or botch something out, you have to have those. And I always tell myself when I do botch one or I glitch on something, I think, good, that's out of the way. Like now I'm on to the next one. And I have missed or fobbled or screwed up or just spooked deer or elk and then literally 20 minutes later shot a great animal, and it's like, holy shit, this is 30 inches bigger than the one that I was all excited to get. Mentally, if you plan on going out of state and hunting, we got to do a podcast on just mental toughness. We'll be definitely having you back on this one. And in fact, great mental toughness one was Kaleb this year. Do you mind if I tell a quick story? And we got to let you get going. Your hunt this year was extremely impressive to me in Kansas. I actually think I meant to text you and be like, hey, kudos. I might have actually texted you and said kudos. I don't know if I did.
I think you did, yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Kaleb, I had tagged out, was it that morning? I think it was the day before.
I think the day before, yeah, you were breaking your buck down or something.
Yeah, I was butchering my deer, and Kaleb sent a text to a couple of us, and I was in Kansas. We were a couple hours apart. You were hunting south or an hour and a half or so.
South of you, 100 miles. Like
yeah.
That,
so Kaleb sends a text, just hit a good one. And then a little bit later, he's like, fuck, or something, So I was tagged out, and it's like, well, I think I was all butchered up. And I was packing my gear. I was leaving the next morning. So I drove. Kaleb, I'm like, I think I texted, like, you need help? And you're like, yeah. So I jumped in the truck and started hammering his way. And I get down there, and Kaleb was, I think, extremely humble when he said earlier that there's a lot of really good deer where he's hunting. What the fuck are you talking about? If the average person, I would say 90% of hunters went where Kaleb hunts, the suicide rate would be higher. There's no fucking deer there. I mean, this kid is punishing himself over miles and miles and miles to find a fucking deer. And then it's like, oh, fuck, it's a 2.5-year-old. Great, keep moving. So when he says that I was amazed when I went down there. We started looking for this deer, and Kaleb had hit a great deer, and we didn't give it our all, but it was like, fuck, literally needle in the haystack. That hayfield, when you and I started walking that, I thought we were just going to pop over that edge, and your buddy was circling with a pickup truck. And then I saw that pickup truck go, and it's like, that fucking thing just went over the horizon. Like, how many miles square was that field? And it's like, the field was deer-colored brown, and it's like, fuck my life. This is, if this deer is down, we're fucked.
Yeah, 2 full sections, so 1,200 and some acres of stripper-headed wheat stubble. So
of wheat stubble.
High wheat stubble. Just, and then the deer can lay down in the combine tracks out there, and their antlers are below the stubble line. So it was low odds for sure.
And we looked till dark, and I was supposed to leave in the morning, and I did leave in the morning.
You did. And the buddy that I was hunting with, he had to get back to work, so it was kind of one of those things. Everybody knew it was a lost cause type of deal, but I had to go back out there and take a peek that next morning, and got lucky. He was on his feet type of deal and moving just a little bit, and kind of headed down into some really thick cover, and definitely not the prettiest ordeal, but that type of stuff happens, especially when you're out, doing it on the ground, and and in the weather conditions and all that, it can happen. But yeah,
dude, hitting them perfect at 20 yards with no fucking wind is tough to do. Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, no, that was the part that makes you a fucking beast is that when I left, I was like, "Fuck, dude, I'm sorry." Like I'll push as hard as I can to help somebody, and then it was like, especially him, I was like, "Fuck, like this deer is on its feet, or if it is dead." You're just not gonna like your best odds were, and I think we even said like, hopefully this deer isn't
an
dead.
airplane.
You would have had to revert, but even then, I mean, fuck, it's tough to. You would have to really be flying low.
Yeah.
And for you to go back out there, re-find that deer in that shit, and get it killed. When you text the next morning, you're like, I found him. I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, man, this kid is a fucking legend. But that's the mindset you have to have. I am not quitting. Fuck it. I'm going. There is a chance.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just sort of a lucky hunch type of deal, and looking at the maps and kind of trying to brainstorm what he might do, water, that type of thing. Because there's not much water in that country. So I don't know. It worked out. I'm glad. That would have been tough because I was leaving to Arizona that next day on an elk hunt, and so that would have been a tough pill to swallow. For sure.
And you killed him. He followed up. It's a cool deer. Big moose paddle on. He had a big moose paddle on one side, didn't he?
Yeah, his right side. He had a big palmation kind of coming off where the 2 and 3 come off the main beam. I don't know, like 8 or 9 inches around there in a couple spots. So 7 on that side, and he was kind of busting up on the other side. But really cool old prairie buck. Bleach white horns out in that country, and I was pretty fired up.
That was impressive, dude. Well, we've kept you long enough, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences with us. You're definitely an inspiration and a murderer, dude. I'm honored to call you my friend, and I appreciate you letting us take the time to call you and for helping. I already feel a touch better, more advanced, knowing like use your fucking phone more, Jesse. But no, thanks for the inspiration, Kaleb. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Right, Kaleb?
You bet, dude. Anytime, man. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Kevin, anything to finalize with this guy?
No, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, Kevin. Anytime, guys.
All right, Kaleb. Thanks a lot, buddy. We'll be in touch. I'm sure we'll be trading bullshit via text message in no time.
Right on.
Hey, thanks for your time. Man. All right, see you, buddy.
See ya.
All right, I'm amped up.
I can tell. I can tell you're amped up.
The dude, he's got. I'm tickled with that. He's one of us. He's a normal dude, and he's just out tipping him over and doing shit that everybody dreams of, and we're all told that it's in a hunt of a lifetime or it's impossible. Kaleb's knocking over 5 or 6 of them in one season. That was an exceptional season. We can't all relate to that shit, but Kaleb makes it very clear that he's an average guy, average everything. You can do one. You can do one hunt. I literally want to pack my shit and go to Arizona right now because I know this season's still open. I'm pumped up.
I'm thinking you might. I'm thinking you're.
Fucking plane tickets are $400. Tag is like $600. I mean, if you take a page out of his book with his $1,000 etiquette, think about that. If you guys are sitting here, you just got done listening to this shit. Think about his $1,000. I literally blow $1,000 on the dumbest shit. Set aside $1,000. Set aside 7 to 10 days. And if you really listen to what he said, and he's the same as me, most of my kills come relatively quick. How many did he kill in 2018 within like the first 3 or 4 days?
3 or 4 days, yeah.
So granted, he's done the homework, but you're sitting around, get off Facebook and Instagram and all this other TikTok bullshit and just study maps, study results, set aside 7 days, set aside $1,000 and go fucking punish yourself. And you're going to have some bone in your hands, man. I'm genuinely amped up. The kid makes me want to do better. He's the type of person I got to keep in my life.
He's the real deal. That's just so neat to hear his stories. And yeah, entertaining and inspiring.
For sure. Yeah, and that's one. I mean, really, we talked about his 18 and his 19 season.
Right.
Kaleb's been knocking this shit over for a long time. I'm psyched. I'm tickled to have somebody like him actually give us the time of day to talk to us. And
I think you picked a great one for our first first guest on the show. I think
he's relatable. Anybody who thinks, well, it must be nice, I can't do that, shut up. You're acting like a pussy. This kid's working a job, trying to make ends meet and put things together, and is going out and doing shit. You can do it too. And truthfully, our next, we got a lineup. I do feel, I'm looking at Kevin with a very cocky look. We have a nasty lineup coming up. I got a pile of dudes that are just like Kaleb. They're average. They're just average guys with above average results, just like what we preach. Yeah. My next buddy, Andy May. If you're in the hunting world, you already know Andy May. He is the sleeper DIY guy. The only thing I don't like about Andy is he's like 6'2". He's extremely good looking. He's fucking model material. It's frustrating. My wife even one time saw a picture of him and she's like, "Who the hell is that?" I'm like, "He's nobody. Just don't even worry about it."
Well, you have such a face for radio.
Oh, yeah, I do. I have a fucking face for radio. Literally short and fucking ugly. Andy May will be our next guest. He's going to be right up kind of the same alley as Kaleb. Andy May brings a different thing to the table. Kaleb comes from Kansas. He doesn't come from the best part in Kansas, but he comes from Kansas nonetheless. Andy May comes from a shit state. As far as I'm concerned, Michigan's a shit state. Andy May's just a wrecking ball. And he's doing it in Michigan. He's doing it in Illinois. He's doing it in Ohio. He's doing it in Colorado. He's another guy. He's a school teacher. He's not making a lot of money. He doesn't have much free time. He's you or I, and he's getting it done. And he's the same as Kaleb. He's going to take a few minutes and give us his 2 cents on how he gets it done and give you guys an advantage on how you can get it done. I really want to see more guys saying, fuck it. My biggest accomplishment out of this was if I ran into somebody somewhere and they're like, "Hey, dude, you're the guy on the podcast. I listened to you. I said, fuck it. My brother and I went to such and such, and I killed a 130-inch deer, and it was a fucking great trip. Fucking success." Because you got to do this shit. I do it constantly, and I just love it. You try and tell people that, and they don't get it. You got to go and do this shit. It's so doable. It's so doable. Absolutely. Kevin and I are getting on a fucking airplane tomorrow. I'm excited.
All right. I'm in.
Done! Let's get the fuck out of here. We're done, folks. Until next time, we appreciate your time. Kevin and I are getting on an airplane.
All right. We'll see you guys.
See ya.